Hello, I'm Monty Wells. I'm with the Petroglyph here in Monticello, Utah. I'm going to talk to you here just a little bit about the wind farm that's going in northwest of town by S-Power. Originally, it was owned by Wasatch Wind and Latigo Wind Park. According to S-Power, they just sold, according to the guy that was here the other day, I think his name is Josh, they purchased the wind farm from Latigo in June, and they'd only been in negotiations about 2 months. I find that a little bit hard to believe because there's letters from S-Power's attorney dating back to July 2013 where they're trying to get an extension on the conditional use permit that Wasatch and Latigo had that had expired on July 5th of that same year, and they're trying to get an extension around July 29th or something. And you look at the documents and you say, oh, okay, well, they're not going to get it. Well, guess what? They got it. The funny thing is, and I'd like the board, I'd like Marcia, the chairman of the board, Planning and Zoning, to show me which meeting they issued that extension in. There's no documentation showing any kind of when that took place or who voted on it. One of the questions by one of the complainants on this deal is that very thing, is when did that take place and who voted on it? Because we just can't find it. It's not in the minutes that we can see. And anyway, so there's some things there that went on, and then there's been a couple of complaints filed in the last couple of weeks or last month. One was by a company called Summit Power. They filed this document here that's about 60-some pages, and I have this on the Petroglyph website. It's part of one of our stories. You can go in and look at it, download it, read the whole thing. It's a lot of good information on what's going on, or what has gone on. It not only talks about the conditional use permit being issued illegally. Basically, one of the claims is that they did not have site control, which meant that they did not have all the leases they needed for the project. And at one point, they claimed to have that, and part of the land that they were claiming they had a lease on was, I believe, Corrine Roaring's, which Corrine did not sign a lease with them. And so that opened up a whole bag of worms and basically substantiates that, yeah, they did not have that when they got their conditional use permit from the county. And they didn't have a lot of other things. They had turned in different maps. They had changed the project. A variety of different things had taken place that violates the county regulations and stuff according to this document. There was another complaint filed by some folks that live out around the new wind farm. They call themselves the Northern Monticello Alliance. They own a bunch of property out there, and they also go in and make a couple of. They file this complaint and say that the conditional use permit had expired. The 6 months that they say that it was granted, it was issued after it had expired. So that violates all the rules that the county has, and so the conditional use permit is not valid. It goes on and talks about some other things that they didn't meet, just like that, which if the conditional use permit's not valid, then the building permit's not valid. And there's some other issues with the building permit that also weren't quite up to par and don't meet county regulations. As far as I can tell on the building permit, it was presented to the county commissioners by Kelly Pearson, according to the minutes. He presented along with another building permit. In the meeting at that time, this was before Bruce Bunker left the county. Excuse me. He was in the meeting. He didn't talk or present the thing. Greg Adams was there, I believe. I was in the meeting. Kelly presented it, and the county issued it. Looking at the documents, Commissioner Adams and Bruce Bunker had signed off on the application, I think on the 3rd. And then late that same day or later, a couple days or a day later, Greg Adams actually was the one that signed off on it, issuing the permit. You'll notice if you go, there's going to be a link to the whole meeting. You go and listen, and Greg is continually telling everybody he didn't really have anything to do with it. The commissioners issued it. It's their fault. Bruce Bunker had done it, and he had left, so Greg didn't know what was going on. That's not the case. Go look at the documentation. It's all right there, black and white. It's in the minutes. I guess they just think most of us are stupid and can't read. I don't know. But even at that, the Planning and Zoning Board isn't even looking at the documentation. In the video that we'll play here, that you'll hear and be able to watch, Marcia, the chairman of the board, she specifically says they're not going to address the legality of the conditional use permit, if it was issued illegally or not, because of some reason of something that didn't make any sense to me. That's the issue. Because if that's not issued legally, the building permit's not legal, and if the building permit's not legal, then what are they doing? There's the other issue that they issued a building permit based on criteria that S-Power said, these are the turbines we're going to use, this is the position of where they're all going to be, and now, after that was issued, S-Power went out, changed the positions of the turbines, even mentions in this video, in the thing we recorded in the meeting, that they changed the turbine to a whole different turbine. That was never approved by the Planning and Zoning Board, which under county regulations, it has to be. If there's any changes to that permit, it has to go through them to be changed, and it never was. But the Planning and Zoning Board doesn't seem to care about that. They know it was changed, he tells them, and they don't raise that as an issue. So I'm not sure what the whole point of this is, but we'll go look at it. The funny thing about all this is that at the very beginning of this meeting, one of the complainants from Northern Monticello Alliance came in with a document, and it's this one right here, that he had typed up with 6 questions on it of these things we talked about, to present to the members of the board, so they'd have some information, that questions they could ask. And he was told by Marcia, the chairman, that he couldn't do that they were not accepting any information from anybody, that they hadn't accepted any from S-Power, and they're not going to get any from the complainants. They had also said that in this meeting, the complainants couldn't even talk. They couldn't present their case. They couldn't argue the evidence and say no. You know, when S-Power makes a claim that your fridge is louder than a wind tower, and he does, and I'll have that in here, you know, they're not able to come out and say, no, that's a bunch of crap, he's just pulling out numbers. Anyway, that's the way it was set up, so we're going to watch that. I'm going to show you here, because there's several things that are interesting in the sense that the way this meeting is ran by the chairman is, to me, is absurd. I mean, it's not of any order. It's very chaotic. To me, she shuts down the board members from talking, tries to dictate what goes on, and a chairman is just supposed to run the meeting, not really own the meeting. You know, if that's the case, then why do they have a board? The other thing in this is they announce it as a public meeting so they can control the people talking, but then on the announcement announcing a public meeting as an agenda item, it is listed as a public hearing. And in a public hearing, it specifically states, in a public hearing, the public has the right to participate by giving information or testimony about the topic of the hearing. You'll hear her being questioned by a gentleman saying, hey, I have the right to talk if this is a hearing. She comes off with something called a judicial hearing. Well, I'm not exactly sure she knows what she's talking about. She's not a judicial body. I think she's an administrative body. I don't think she's part of the judicial system or anything like that. I don't know. I can't find anything that just supports her claim that this is a judicial hearing, and in a judicial hearing, nobody can say anything unless she says so. So anyway, let's watch it. It's kind of amazing. It'll give you something to laugh about, but it'll also make you aware of what a mess this is. And, you know, wind farm, fine. It's private property. You know, I may agree, may not agree with the wind farm. Thing I don't agree with is the way it's all being done. The amount of money that has been finagled and used to develop a private wind farm that's all public money. The city of Monticello has been taken in on it on different grants, USDA grants. There's a whole bunch of other parts of this that I don't agree with, and all the under the table dealings. I specifically don't agree with Commissioner Adams not disclosing his personal interest in this. It's being used as part of some interest that he has with Adams Minerals and different things. Latigo Wind Park. There's a whole part there that he just needs to come clean with. And he hasn't, and this has happened before on other land deals that he's done, and he's gotten away with it so far. But, so let's look at this, and we'll look at this first part. You can see where this guy's trying to hand this out, and she tells him, no, you can't do this.
It would not be fair to be approached by the other side.
The holders, so they haven't submitted information to you?
No. Not since the scheduling of this hearing. They were not allowed to.
I'll just read it on my own time. I just want to know what the concerns are.
Yeah, it was filled out.
They were given to us. They were given to us the last time, and that's why we're having the hearing tonight.
Well, I understand that, but I won't. Thank you. Where do I need to sign on? Oh, the glasses on.
Somebody else's county, don't they?
I'm sorry, that's how it was explained to me.
The information can be provided even outside.
You provide this isn't a meeting yet. I'll discuss it during the meeting.
Wow.
Have it. She gets all frustrated there at the end when he's trying to get her to clarify what she's talking about, and she just throws her hands up and says, this ain't a meeting yet, I'm not going to talk about it till then. Basically, I don't know what I'm talking about, so why don't you just leave? Anyway, that's just my opinion, but anyway, this next little part I'm going to play, it was from the first meeting. So what they're talking about here is how they're setting up the meeting, how it's going to be advertised, what the meeting is going to be, and what they're going to talk about.
And I seconded that, and that's where we stand. And we are not doing this as a noticed public hearing. We are doing it at our public meeting. Okay, that's clarified?
Does the other side have the right to come to that public meeting?
Absolutely to be here.
And talk to
No.
them. That's all.
There's no...
I just,
Yep.
it's legal, that's all I'm worried about.
Now...
See, she just talked about, how it's set up. Yes, the public can come, but the public can't talk. And there is a little bit more discussion going on. We have the full video online, too, if you ever want to watch the whole meeting. But this next little part is just her explaining why it's only going to be a one-sided hearing. To find out the truth of what's gone on, they're going to only have one side present any evidence. Here it is.
Well, I understand where that's coming from but I also understand why it's written this way, and it's written this way so we don't sit there and say left or right. We just say, here it is. Written this way, and it's written this way so we don't sit there and say left or right. We just say, here.
I took that clip out of the full video that we did of that meeting, but it's just like, wow, we're not going to do it because we don't want to have a discussion. This is just we're just going to present what it is. Here it is. We don't care to hear the other side of the argument. We don't care to hear the people that have filed a complaint. We don't care to give them due process to be able to be heard so that the evidence is presented. I'll guarantee you that probably the people sitting in the audience know a lot more about wind farms than anybody on that board. And for them, for the chairman to sit there and say, no, we're not going to hear from them, it's just amazing to me that they're sitting here taking the word of a company, S-Power, and good or, right or wrong, whoever they are. If you're trying to find out the truth of something, you would think you'd pull in a third party that knows something about that about the wind farm projects or wind farms, a third party that can advise the board that has no interest with the parties involved. That way, when they're coming up and saying whatever they're saying, the board can turn to their advisor, and he can say, well, in some cases that is, or maybe it's not, whatever. But you'd think you'd have that. Instead, they just keep asking them questions. This next little segment, we're going to see, basically it's S-Power giving a list of everything that they've done. There was other parts they added too, but the thing that dawned on me here that I thought was interesting is here they are reading all this stuff off to the board. And at one point, the board does talk about that S-Power sent them a letter outlining all this stuff. So the statement that she made to the complainants saying, no, we're not getting any documentation from anybody, isn't actually true. They received a letter outlining this, all from S-Power, and S-Power gets to go through and explain every step. And again, the complainants, they send in their complaints and they don't get to address it at all. So it's interesting that they did that. Plus, the other thing I thought was interesting, it's a letter. You'll see he doesn't present any documentation showing anything that they did. Between 2012, July 2012 and July 2013, there was not a whole lot going on out there. The road was not really improved at all. Nothing was really done until just lately. After they bought it, they went in gangbusters, widened the road, started doing the concrete, everything like that. Before that, there was hardly anything so that you could actually see. But there's no documentation that they present to the board showing that it's done. They don't even present the study of the birds and the whatever else they do for supposedly from 2011 to 2013. They don't provide. They're trying to say what has been done, and they didn't even own the project back then. They don't know what was done. All they have is documentation, and they're not providing it to the board. The whole thing is just, to me, absurd, the way it's being done. I mean, if you're going to have a hearing, you need to have a hearing with evidence and documentation to show what was actually done and what wasn't. But here, watch this part. Oh, and then she comes up, this is just my point, that I told you that probably the people in the audience know more about what is going on as far as wind farms than they do, than the board. She starts asking questions that are clearly questions that someone that doesn't have a clue about anything with a wind farm is asking. And I mean, you'd think the board would be a little bit more educated on the issue than what she's claiming there. But it's worth watching.
Under the engineering as well is, in addition to the cultural surveys, part of the environmental surveys was avian studies. So
I'm sorry, what study?
Avian, bird. We've done a number of on-site point count surveys to understand the migratory path of avian species out here, including eagles and hawks. And we've taken that data, continuing to work with various agencies on mitigation plans using that information.
And when was that?
That beginning in April of 2011 and continuing through October of 2013.
Which of these, I'm sorry, Joe, please, I don't want to break your thought, okay?
I'll come back.
Okay. Which of these studies and or actionable things that you're trying to explain to us, which of those are mandated? Do you, by the things that you'll have to do, or which are just normal steps in other words, EIS and other things are normal steps when you're developing on land?
Yeah.
Some of these are required though? What's the difference perhaps?
Environmental impact statement, you're saying, EIS?
An EIS, geotech, avian studies, which kind of are mandated and legally required or?
Sure.
Okay, if you'd like to address the concerns we have about mitigation.
Yes, and I apologize. Can you reread the allegation
Sure.
just so I can understand exactly what to address?
The allegation in the request for hearing is
So they're talking on here, about what the complaint is, which I find very interesting as well. That here we are doing a presentation, and either they didn't get a copy of the complaints, which they did. They said they were going to send them. A copy the meeting before this, or maybe he just forgot during that and doesn't have it in his notes. I don't know. thought it was interesting anyway. And then she goes on to explain a little bit, how they're going to take care of the mitigation as far as the sight and sound. He goes on to talk about that, how, they're going to do $4,000 for some. Four Corner School, they've got them set up on $250,000 over the next 5 years of programs or something to mitigate some of the sound and sight of the flashing lights and things like that. And for those of you that haven't been around a wind farm down in Idaho Falls, where I grew up, there's the whole mountainside there, the whole foothills there are now covered with a wind farm, and it's pretty amazing to sit and watch at night, all the lights. And you drive up there and the sound that you get. Him talking about the sound here, he'll talk about that our fridges are higher than, our fridge can be up to 50 decibels, which is higher than a wind farm thing. And well, I've been up around the wind towers up there in Idaho Falls, and I've never heard a fridge that loud. But anyway, so that's what he's going to talk about here. We'll watch that, and we're almost done, and we'll just sum it up. And it'll give you this will just give you a little bit better idea on what's going on.
For existing residences, the project does not exceed, actually comes very far from, even coming close to the thresholds for existing residences. As you know, most of the existing residents are well east of the project and will not. I think the loudest one for an existing residence was around 37 decibels, and the threshold was 47, I believe.
You're saying the 37 is what the turbine will generate?
Right, 37 decibels. I mean,
at what
to put it in
distance?
context,
Yeah.
the sound of your refrigerator in your home can be as loud as 55 decibels. During a realistic case, which isn't the conservative case, it's a very real case. This is, again, a reduction from what was stated in the supplemental agreement because of the shorter machine. We've actually reduced the machine height by 30 feet.
The tower height?
Tower height, correct.
Okay.
I think a lot of it just be summarized on sound and shadow flicker. We chose to go with a quieter machine than what was planned in October of 2012. We've also chosen to go with a shorter machine than was planned in October of 2012.
How tall is the machine now?
80 meter hub height and 116.
So there you have it. Those the highlights of the meeting, and the meeting before, showing what the meeting was set up to be, what it ended up being, and how I believe it violated the due process for the complainants, as well as violated the public meeting laws for public hearings. And I think it's pretty clear that it did. And hopefully something can be done so that the complainants have their time. There was one comment that was made that that she had made during the meeting, that she was asked by one of the other commissioners if the county commissioners could override what they decide, and she said no, they can't. Well, looking up things, county commissioners are the appeal board. And I believe they can override it. So hopefully when they go through this and they haven't even looked at the real issue or addressed the complaint, it can go to the county commissioners, and then hopefully between the three of them, you'll have a couple that aren't involved in it that hopefully will be able to see what's going on and be able to make a good ruling or judgment on it.